there is a mentality there that's much more family oriented. So, well, if you want to have a family, it takes two to tango. In that sense, people are actually looking for something real. A lot of people, if not most people out there, are wanting something real, especially the women. The difference in mentality, though, when it comes to, I think the culture is, there's somewhat of a balancing out. I think that there is a lot of Filipinos and a lot of Filipino women who are buying into more of the Western ideology, more of the feminist ideology. And I don't think that's a very positive thing, because if you look at the difference between dating here versus dating there, you find a lot of women here are a lot less approachable because they have this mentality that it's much more of a transactional mentality as opposed to a family-oriented mentality. I think especially here in California.
Yeah, do you think it's more of an LA phenomenon?
I think
it's definitely heightened in LA because
Yeah.
most girls are in the industry here.
Yeah, there's Hollywood, there's entertainment industry here, and so I think the mentality when it comes to meeting people who have more family-oriented mentality is a lot less. Out there, it's because I think out here a lot of women are told things like, wait until you're in your mid-30s to even think about settling down and having kids. So instead of women, I don't want to get too much into it, but instead of women thinking like, okay, is this person a good person? Do they have the qualities? Do they have virtue? Are they going to be a good father? Are they going to be a good husband? Instead of thinking that way, what are they thinking? Like, they're not really thinking about those important aspects. So either one, they're thinking more like, well, I want to focus on my career, or they're thinking more from like the opportunistic perspective. And I think that's the problem. The problem with our culture here in California, and increasingly all over, is that it becomes very utilitarian. What am I getting out of it? Instead of, is this a good person? And so, because I think the problem is it's lacking that family-oriented mentality. It's lacking the family emphasized on, this is what I really want. So if you're only thinking from what am I getting out of it, it's not actually thinking whether or not this person is a good person. So when it comes to the difference between dating here in LA versus other places, within California that are a little bit more conservative, or even in other states that are more conservative, or even the Philippines, which is much more conservative, you find that the mentality makes a big difference. If you have a culture, I said this last time, a culture is simply culture that helps you to be good. That's a quote from Dorothy Day. And a good culture is simply a good culture is simply a culture that helps you to be good. Whereas a bad culture is simply a culture that helps you to be bad, kind of pushes you to be bad or allows you to be bad in that regard. And so when it comes to that, I think it's the biggest, saddest part about it is that I think it's hurt women even more, because you have a lot of women who, unfortunately, they buy into the lie, just wait until your mid-30s. But the problem is, and I'll just give you a little insight into this, if you do that, you're really testing your luck, because if you look at when a girl turns 18, all right, I didn't know I was going to go this route, but if you look at a girl who's like 18, she has what's her dating pool? What's the extent of her dating pool? Pretty much every single guy out there, right? She can date anybody an age if she's comfortable, because she's got the world at, she's got every guy who is compatible between the ages of 18 and 35. If she wants to even date older, she can. She has that ability. But if a girl waits until she's 35, is she going to be dating a 20-year-old guy? No. What's she going to be dating? 35, most likely 35 and older. So the problem with that is the dating pool vastly shrinks as she gets older, because most girls don't date younger. Most girls will date older. And likewise, most guys don't date older. They mainly date younger. It's just the way we're psychologically designed. So, girls are looking for a guy who they can respect and are more established and can take care of them. There's that psychological drive in them to find that type of person. And guys are looking for a girl who has, just we're designed to look for fertility, which is like if you look at the scientific studies, we look for certain aspects that point to that. Well, youth is a really important role in whether or not a woman is fertile. So there are things within that you cannot help but be attracted to these certain things. Well, for women, you're attracted to men who are mature, who can take care of you, who are higher up on the dominance ladder, and are more established. Women almost always date up the dominance ladder. They almost always date somebody who is more established than them. Well, if a woman is only focused on her career, and if she's waiting until she's 35, then she's reduced her dating pool to men who are 35 and older, who are interested in her, okay, and men who are higher up the dominance ladder. Well, if you're focused on your career as a woman for that entire amount of time, then you're pretty high up on that. You're probably pretty high up in your business or in that company. So for you might not like dating somebody else who's maybe not as high as you on that role, or on that in their career, whether they're older than you or even younger than you. So I think it really harms their opportunities to find something real, because they've not been looking for somebody who has good virtues, but they're looking for somebody who has some of these other superficial things, money and power and whatnot, instead of realizing that family, most women are much more fulfilled. And I think statistically speaking, I mean, not everybody, sure, but I think statistically speaking, women are more apt to be more fulfilled and happier within a family, having a family, even if at a younger age.
Interesting.
Sorry, that's a lot, but yeah.
Well, that's a lot deeper than I thought this was going to go. That's a good thing, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of people out there who's going to want to debate you on that.
That's fine. I mean, I'm always willing to be wrong, about it. This is just what I've been looking into and studying and realizing. But if I'm able to be proven wrong, that's a good thing, because being wrong is where you learn. So I think in everything in your life, you should walk into every situation. Jordan Peterson talks about this. Walk into every conversation, trying to think and trying to have in your mind that you should and could learn something from that. So I'm always willing to debate, I like dialoguing better, because I want to learn things too. I always want to learn. But this is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced. And I think it's harmed a lot of women, unfortunately. But in the Philippines, I think it's much more a healthier balance.
You'd say it's more conservative for a large part.
Yeah, sure.
And you guys like that? Because we're pretty conservative guys when it comes to dating. I am. When I date, I ask someone on a date. I'm looking more for marriage in the future, because marriage leads to kids. That's the mentality that we have. And not everyone out there has the same mentality. So
yeah, I mean that's the funny thing is, like, I think we all want kids, but it's
maybe we should do this again with someone who is not of that same mentality.
Yeah,
in the Philippines,
that would be kind of interesting.
We have a few people that we know.
Well, there definitely are. Yeah, I think there's this higher percentage of like-minded people.
So, have you guys dated in the Philippines already?
Yeah, a bit.
How was it, guys? How was it? How was dating in the Philippines? And after that, after that, talk about how you compare it to dating here.
Yeah.
What differences do you see, if there are any differences?
I'll jump in real quick and then go take it real quick. So it's funny enough, when I was in the Philippines, I did meet some people who were from here, and I also did date some girls who were from there. And I will say that honestly, it's really night and day. The mentality is different. I think that the mentality of the girls that I met who were actually from here in California, who had moved to the Philippines, it wasn't what I'm really looking for. I don't think they had that family-oriented mentality is what I'm trying to say. But the girls who were from there, they definitely were more serious when it comes to that. It almost seemed to come natural. Of course, this is what dating is for. So it was refreshing. And I think it's a healthier, to be honest, a healthier mindset for everybody.
Rob?
I'd say dating here in the U.S. is a lot more recreational. Over there, it has an end goal in mind. It's like, oh, I like her, she likes me, where is this going to go? Is it, do we really like each other, or is it just, we're more like friends, and if we do like each other, what are the chances of this actually working out? I think those are the natural trains of thought that people have, and I think it used to be like that here until recently. I mean, there's still people that think like that, but you can't take that for granted. There's a lot more people here that date just to date because, like, well, it's a Friday and I need to go out on a date, and so I'm gonna find someone to go out on a date, and to a degree that's fine, but there's definitely there's no certainty that, like, going on a date with the typical person here in the U.S. That they're gonna think about like the long-term viability of this relationship. It's just purely recreational at first, and then certain things happen, a certain amount of time passes, then you start to think like, oh, well, could this turn into a relationship? And then after it turns into a relationship, they start to think like, oh, well, am I gonna continue this long term? Could I see them as a partner? Whereas I think in the Philippines, they're from the outset thinking about, like, is this a viable partner? So I think it's a different and more healthy mindset.
Times of that, like all the vows. You look at those vows the person makes on their wedding day. Those are vows of suffering. So, do we have the same mentality? Do we have the same goals? Are we truly compatible? Are we willing to suffer with each other for these goals that we want to have, whether it's for family, and these different things? If you can find that, then that's a wonderful thing. That's great. But if you're coming at it from what am I getting out of it, then I think that, again, it's going back to the same mentality that we have here in some of these melting pot areas, which is not very family oriented, and so that hurts yourself, it hurts the other people, because I like what Mother Teresa, I don't mean to get philosophical, but I like what she said. Mother Teresa and Albert Einstein had the same exact quote: life isn't worth living unless it's lived for others. We were made for love, real love, which is sacrifice and selflessness, and that's how we really find purpose in our lives. If you're just living for yourself, it's very empty. Another quote from Into the Wild, which is, happiness is only real when shared. So finding that person you can share the happiness with, that you can sacrifice for, that you can live for, that you can take care of, and they can take care of you, and that's a beautiful thing. But you really need to figure out whether or not you are compatible, whether or not it's the right fit. But most people aren't thinking these days that way. They're not thinking that way. They're only thinking with the immediate gratification in their mindset. Well, I think that's unhealthy for both sides.
Do you find it easier to meet and talk with people in the Philippines versus here?
I found I had a better time and a better experience with talking with girls and connecting with girls who were actually from the Philippines, because the mindset was something that I could connect with. We're on the same level of what we're looking for. Now, it didn't work out, but I definitely found that it was what I was thinking was confirmed. That it's there's a mindset that is there that is more in line with what I'm looking for, as opposed to out here. Now, I've met girls out here who we share similar mindsets, but again, it's like the needle in the haystack sort of scenario, and you could find them out here, but it's a needle in the haystack, and there's a lot of hate.
Yeah, it's a different attitude there. The people that I've met in person and on apps, they seem more genuine. When they talk to you, they're actually trying to get to know you. Whereas the vibe that I get from a lot of girls in LA is, are you talking to me? And they're trying to like immediately feel you out and like see what you want from them.
Yeah.
Like they don't really. I think a lot of people here are jaded, and they're.
It goes for men too.
Yeah, for sure.
Men
It's
and
true.
women,
I remember that there was a video, I think, was it you mentioned it, or somebody was talking to me, where this guy went up to this girl or whatever and on the street and said, "Hey, how's it going?" and started talking with her, and she was like really like "Why are you talking to me?" blah blah blah. She's all upset. He's like, "Oh, do you want to come to lunch with me?" She's like, "No, I'm not going to go to lunch with you." And she's like all upset, like, "Why are you talking with me?" And then he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he walks over to his Ferrari and starts getting it. And she's like, "Oh, well, I mean, I guess I could maybe go to lunch with you." So like,
Definitely wasn't me.
you can see. Okay,
Not a story
okay.
I would say, but yeah.
But that's sometimes the mentality. It's like,
Do you think it's more of a generality, or do you think that's more of a specific situation, or is that in LA?
Okay,
It's more.
I don't want to say it's a generality, but I don't say it's common to every girl, but it's common to a high percentage,
yeah. And there's
especially in the LA area.
there's part of it. I get it. Women are attracted to men who are successful, who can take care of themselves, who can take care of them. But to
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but a lot of girls in LA aren't really looking. Some of them are looking to be taken care of, but a lot of them, if they're in the industry, they're looking like, who are you?
Yeah,
Are you someone that can help me get ahead in my career?
yeah.
If so, then okay, I'll talk to you. But if not, then I don't have time for you.
So
Yeah.
so we're seeing this as generality. So essentially, you see it as you feel that in the Philippines it's more genuine, it's less barrier to dating, and do you feel like it being a homogenous culture that we have more of a situation where it's easier to date,
I would say,
especially if you're a foreigner?
let me just say this: the closer you are to Hollywood in LA, the more that mindset's going to be more common. The further the way you get from it, I think that you find people who have their mindset in a more traditional way. They're more traditionally minded.
I mean, in the city, you're going to find a lot of people that have, they've watched a lot of American movies, and so they've been influenced to a certain degree by, what they think is normal in American society. So they might not have as much of a traditional mindset, but they are still very open and personable, and it's still easier to talk to them, get to know them. And yeah, in the city there's going to be a lot more people that maybe they're not exactly what you're looking for, but you can still get to know them easier and in a friendly, genuine way. And then you get to know them and say, okay, maybe this is not what I'm really looking for, but it's still a genuine interaction. They'll tell you, maybe they're not interested in being a housewife, they want to have a career or whatever, and that's their decision. But the time that you spend with each other, getting to know each other, that's a genuine, honest interaction. They're not looking to see what they can get from you. It's just socializing.
So to conclude, really, with the dating, is that you feel it's easier, less barrier to dating someone there. You feel it's more easier to approach people, and so on and so forth.
I would
you
say
feel
it's-
that more here in LA. There is a culture here that is maybe you won't find in other places, maybe in the United States, but specifically here in LA, there's a culture here where it's a bit more pretentious, maybe arrogant.
Yeah, for
for
sure.
men and women.
Utilitarian and
Utilitarian.
shallow.
And shallow.
I think because in the city, it's a hard city to live in. And there's a lot of expensive. It's one of the highest. What's the word for it?
Too many-
Cost of living. Here.
A lot of expectations.
I
I
think
mean, you gotta make enough to be able to get by wherever you're living, but too many girls here are immediately thinking like, well, what do I think his net worth is?
That,
you know what I mean?
I remember there was a conversation we had with some friends who will be remain unnamed, but we asked them, so what's your standard of dating? There's these two ladies.
We
and-
weren't talking financially, but that's where their mind went.
Now, do you think that's
Yeah.
commonplace here, or is that just more specific, or is it becoming more commonplace?
Well,
I-
it is,
even if it's
Beverly
unsaid.
Hills, but I mean, I think it is prevalent.
Even if it's unsaid, I think it's within the mindset of the culture. Money has become, in a sense, more important than virtue.
I think they were open to say it because they're our friends,
Yeah.
but I think it is the underlying mindset in a lot of people here.
So here's what they said. They said, we asked them, so what are you looking for? What's your standards? What would you settle for? And immediately when they heard that, what did their minds go to? The monetary idea. And they said, well, we would settle for a guy who makes $500,000 a year.
And I think the first number she threw out was 750,000.
Okay, was it
This is
750,000?
here in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, she's like only 750,000 a year, and then she's like, no, wait, no, 300,000.
And then one of them was like, well, okay, yeah, 250, 300,000, okay. And it's like, if you look at that,
Do you think that's more of an LA phenomenon?
Yeah,
This is-
yeah.
yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
is. It is.
definitely.
But I understand. I understand that that women have this attraction to somebody who can take care of them, and money is a good sign that they can take. When it comes to resources. So I get the psychology behind that. But if that's your ultimate thing of priority, then you're kind of reducing your worth to a number, and that's the part that I think is messed up, because if you're trying to find somebody who has real potential to care for you and to care for children and has those virtues, and is not just going to see you as somebody who could be bought, then that's actually it's kind of a shallow mindset, and I think it's harmful, very harmful for women, because what are you attracting? You're attracting somebody who's you're only seeing them as, what am I getting from them? And that, again, it's a utilitarian mindset, when we know that love is really about sacrifice and about giving. It's two people becoming a sincere gift to each other, not two people using each other. I think that's the problem, is that in that type of mindset, in this type of culture, you have a culture that becomes utilitarian. And they're not thinking, is this person going to be a good husband, a good father, a good provider? What kind of virtue does he have? They're only thinking on these very shallow aspects.
I don't want it to come across like women shouldn't consider someone's money, because they should.
Yeah.
They should consider if someone's able to take care of them. But I think they should consider whether someone's able to take care of all their needs, their financial needs, not necessarily can someone provide me with every luxury that I want right now. I think what they should consider is if someone is a hard worker, and whether they have the diligence and the intelligence to keep progressing in their career or their business, and keep advancing so that they can provide for a continually growing family.
Yeah.
And so if they can do that, and they're a good person, they have good character, they have good values, then you should consider them for a potential spouse, and not rule them out based on an arbitrary number. I'm not saying that they don't need to make a certain amount of money depending on where you live, but you don't have to have a celebrity style of living for that person to be a viable candidate as a partner.